You know what's ironic? The people who find God often become the very reason others avoid God. They get sincere, they get passionate, but somewhere along the way they develop this holier-than-thou energy that repels the very people they want to help. Here's what happens. Someone finds faith and it changes their life. They're genuinely excited. They want everyone to experience what they've found, but that excitement curdles into something else, into judgment, into urgency, into superiority. The message gets wrapped in a package that makes people feel small, wrong, inadequate, and here's the blind spot. They flee to religion to escape Satan. They avoid the obvious sins, the drinking, the lying, the obvious wrongs. But they forget to guard their ego. Pride slips in through the back door while they're watching the front. Instead of becoming a pillar that holds up the house, they become what destroys it from within. They think they're building, but they're undermining. When a man addressed Jesus as good, he said, "I'm not good. Only God is good." Think about that. Jesus himself deflected the compliment. The truly righteous don't think they're righteous. Because real spiritual depth comes with an acute awareness of your own failings, your own limitations, your dependence on God. It's inherently humbling. The moment you think you've arrived spiritually, you've probably veered off course. The people who actually embody goodness are the most conscious of how far they still have to go. They don't need to announce their righteousness because it's just woven into who they are. If this resonated, subscribe, and let's have a real talk about faith and growth. Here's what people forget. We all come from Allah and we're all returning to Allah. Every single person, no exceptions. People are just at different phases of the trip back to Allah. Some are ahead, some are behind, some are taking detours, but everyone's on the same journey home. This removes all that hierarchical judgment. Nobody's standing at the finish line looking down at others. We're all just travelers, all trying to find our way back to the same source. But here's what happens when people forget this. They look at someone struggling and think, why aren't they where I am? They see someone questioning and judge them for not having arrived yet. They forget that people are in different seasons. What speaks to you in one season of life might feel completely wrong in another. Not every moment is a teaching moment. Not every person is ready for your message right now. Someone might be grieving, or questioning, or content where they are, or actively searching. And your urgent preaching might be exactly what pushes them further away. The most compelling religious people? They're usually the quiet ones. People whose faith shows up in how they treat others, in their humility, in their willingness to sit with complexity. They don't need to announce anything because it's just who they are. Understanding seasons changes everything. Here's something most people overlook. The Quran was revealed over 22 years. 22 years. That wasn't random, that was the design. The early Muslims didn't get a download. They didn't receive the complete Quran and then have to figure it all out at once. They got it piece by piece. Often, in response to specific situations they were actually facing. Practices were introduced gradually. Alcohol wasn't prohibited immediately. There were stages. First discouragement, then restriction, then full prohibition. People had time to adjust, time to grow into each teaching before the next one came. There's something deeply merciful in that design. It acknowledges that transformation takes time, that people need to adjust. That spiritual development is a process, not an event. The companions of the Prophet, these were the gold standard Muslims, right? Even they had over 2 decades of guided incremental growth. They weren't perfect on day one, they were becoming. But now, someone converts or rediscovers their faith, and there's this expectation, from themselves or from others, that they should embody complete practice immediately. 22 years of gradual revelation gets compressed into you should know and do everything now. We forget that even the Prophet's companions needed time. If divine wisdom chose gradualism over instantaneousness, who are we to demand everything at once? Everyone's still in their own revelation period, their own 22 years. Patience with the process changes everything, but why is gradual change the only change that lasts? Gradual changes are lasting changes. Overnight changes can change overnight. Let that sink in. When something changes quickly in your life, overnight transformations, sudden commitments, radical overhauls, it's usually surface level, driven by emotion, by pressure, by a burst of motivation that feels powerful in the moment. And what comes quickly? It leaves just as quickly. When the feeling fades, when circumstances shift, when motivation runs out, the change evaporates. Because it was never rooted, it was just performance. But gradual change, that's different. Gradual change gets woven into who you are. You're not just adopting new behaviors, you're becoming a different person. It happens slowly enough that the change actually integrates into your character, your habits, your instincts. It becomes sustainable because it's not fighting against your entire being. It's reshaping your being. Think about New Year's resolutions. The person who overhauls their entire life on January 1st, usually burned out by February, but the person who adds one small practice, lets it become natural, then adds another, they're still going years later. Real growth has seasons. It needs time to germinate and to take root, to weather some storms and come back stronger. The irony? In our urgency to be better, we sabotage the very transformation we're seeking by demanding it happen too fast. We want the harvest without the planting season. Slow down to speed up. So why are we all trapped in instant gratification mode? Why is patience so rare these days? Look around. Fast food, fast weight loss, fast entertainment, fast everything. We're all primed for instant gratification. And spiritual practice, prayer, meditation, growth, that requires patience, consistency, faith that the practice will yield results over time. In a world trained on instant results, the patient path feels almost impossible. But here's where it gets interesting. Think about the kid using drugs to escape, and the person in deep prayer. They're both seeking the same thing: transcendence, peace, escape from the noise, connection to something beyond themselves, that need to step outside yourself, to find meaning beyond the grinding every day. That's universal. That's human. The impulse is actually the same. The path makes all the difference. With namaz, with meditation, with any spiritual practice, you're building something internal. You're developing a capacity within yourself. The more you do it, the stronger that capacity becomes. You own it. It's yours. You can access it anywhere, anytime. No prerequisites, no dependencies. You become more capable, more whole. But with drugs, you're outsourcing the experience. You need the substance. You're dependent on it. And often the more you use it, the more you need it. Instead of building capacity, you're creating dependence. And when it's not available, you're left more hollow than before. Here's the critical difference. With spiritual practice, you're only dependent on you and the technique. With substances, you're beholden to the drug. One builds you up, the other breaks you down. The path you choose determines your freedom. Here's the paradox most people get completely backwards. True freedom isn't having no responsibility. True freedom is discipline. People think freedom means no rules, no structure, no obligations, just doing whatever you want, whenever you want. That sounds like freedom, right? But that kind of freedom leads to chaos, to regret, to being controlled by your impulses, your addictions, your moods. You become a slave to whatever you're feeling in the moment. Discipline is what actually liberates you. When you have structure, whether it's praying 5 times a day, working out regularly, managing your time, keeping commitments, you're not restricted by those things. You're freed through them. The person who's disciplined with their health, they have the freedom to move through life without being limited by their body. The person disciplined with their time, they have the freedom to actually accomplish what matters to them. The person disciplined in spiritual practice, they can access peace when life gets chaotic. Discipline creates capacity. It builds strength. It means you're in control rather than being controlled. The undisciplined person thinks they're free. But they're actually trapped by their habits, their weaknesses, their lack of follow-through. They can't do what they actually want because they never built the foundation to support it. Their freedom is really just being pushed around by circumstances and impulses. Real freedom is having mastery over yourself, and that only comes through discipline, through responsibility, through showing up consistently even when you don't feel like it. It's the long way that turns out to be the shortcut. The disciplined path that everyone avoids, that's actually the path to everything they want. Master yourself to free yourself. Leave a comment if this changed your perspective.